All right, boys and girls, what I'm going to be doing now is a second through third grade shape drawing. So some of you might remember that my favorite artist is Alexander Calder, and he worked a lot with three-dimensional shapes. Um, and I know that most of you at home don't have materials to make three-dimensional art necessarily. I'm not telling you that you can't. I'm just saying we're going to work on paper still. So what I have is just lined paper, and I'm going to make a vertical drawing. So that means it's going to be taller and then it's going to be wider, because if it was a horizontal drawing, it would be this way. So for my vertical drawing, I'm going to be making a shape picture. So that means I'm going to use organic shapes and geometric shapes. So if you remember, geometric shapes are the ones that have names: square, circle, triangle, rectangle, hexagons, octagons. All of those shapes that have names are geometric shapes. Organic shapes are ones that are a little bit more natural found, leaf shapes, heart shapes, any type of animal shape. Those are all organic. So I'm going to start with, on the bottom, I'm going to draw some triangles. I'm going to draw some tall triangles. I'm going to have them overlap a little bit. This one's going to go off the paper. I'm going to have one come up here. I'm going to draw one going up over here. And then I'm going to intersect my lines. So when I say I'm going to intersect, that means I'm going to cut through the shape and I'm going to make a different line. So I'm going to draw a line that goes like this through this triangle. I'm going to draw a line that comes up, and then I'm going to draw a line that goes down. So these are intersected. I'm not just drawing lines that crisscross each other. I'm not trying to do that. This is a little bit different than what you might be used to doing. So if you do it this way, it's going to look a lot more interesting. We've talked about emphasis a little bit. So we're emphasizing our shapes down here by creating a difference. Now you see this one looks like that. So all the other triangles around it look a lot less interesting than this one. But we're going to do this in all of the triangles, but I'm going to go at a different direction in the triangle. So I'm going to come across like this. Now that is a similar line shape, but I changed the direction of the lines a little bit. Over here, I'm going to have this one come up like this, but I'm going to make a T shape inside of there. And then I'm going to draw another one that goes like this. I'm still only drawing 3 lines, but I'm changing the direction of those lines each time I draw them. Let's do one. Let's do one kind of a lower slopey area. We're going to be coloring these in with different colors also. And then this one, I'm going to make it really different by doing that. Okay. So now we have some triangles. From this area, we're going to draw, well, actually, you know what? We're going to do that after we do this part. Up here, we're going to draw some circle shapes or oval shapes. They do not have to be perfect, guys. I'm not expecting them to be perfect. These shapes don't have to be perfect. So I'm going to draw some oval shapes, maybe some that looks kind of like a pear, you know, just some round shapes. I don't like that. I'm going to change that, make it look like that. I don't know. It didn't quite work. It's okay. And if you don't like it, you can erase it. Remember to draw lightly with your pencil so that you can change your shapes. I don't know, I'm being kind of silly now. Okay. One more, and then one more there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw some more intersecting lines. So they're just going to come up and attach to these shapes and go down off of the paper. And they're going to touch in various different places that maybe you didn't think that they would. So you see, I didn't draw through any of my shapes. I try to be really careful at that. So what some of you might try to do is draw these shapes too small. If you notice, I didn't make them too small. We're going to color them in. So if you draw them, I know you guys like to draw these teeny tiny shapes. That's not going to work for this project. It's just not. Same thing with our triangles down here. It's just not going to work. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to pull out primary colors. So our primary colors are blue, red, and yellow. So whatever you have that's close to those colors will work fine, because a lot of my pencils in here are not very sharp. Okay. And I don't have a pencil sharpener. I need to go get one. Okay, so I have a yellow color. Doesn't have to be perfectly yellow. Let's see. I have a blue color and I need a red color. One that's got a nice amount of lead. No, that's too pink. Maybe I shouldn't be picky, huh? Oh, here's a red. There we go. Red. All right. And then you need black. Black is going to help us create contrast. Here's one. It's going to help us create contrast in our picture. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the black pencil. If you have a Sharpie, use a Sharpie. If you have a crayon, use a crayon. Whatever you have that is black is going to work. So whatever material you're working in, use that. Be careful if you do have crayons because it can smear. So it might be better to use a colored pencil, or if you have a black permanent marker, that would work really well too. But I'm just gonna do it in colored pencil. Now the black colored pencil, I'm going over every single one of my pencil lines. Now you might wonder, why did I draw it in regular pencil if I'm just gonna trace over it with black pencil? The reason for that is colored pencils don't erase as easily, or sometimes at all, depending on what kind you have. They don't erase very well. And so instead of worrying about making a mistake and having to start over and waste paper by crumpling it up and throwing it away, we're going to draw in pencil first, and we draw lightly in pencil so that we can erase. Oh, I made a mistake there. That's okay. Like I said, every pencil line we have drawn, we are going to go over with our black, whatever black you're working with. Now, if you're working with a black Sharpie on lined paper, it is 100% going to go through your paper. So if you have something you can use like a paint mat underneath, if you have a cereal box works great for an art mat. Use a cereal box or another piece of cardboard that you can draw on, because I'm sure your mom probably doesn't want you messing up her kitchen table. So make sure if you're using a permanent marker, you're thinking about that the type of paper that you have. And we know what happens in my classroom with the drawing paper, that it is important to not leave marks behind. Now I know that I don't care in my classroom because those are art tables, but that's a different situation. We're not at school, are we? All right. So I've outlined all of my shapes. As you can see, they stand out a lot better. I'm done with the black for now. We're going to use it as an accent piece. So first I'm going to do is I'm going to choose areas that I want to be red. And I don't want to have like this space be red and then this be red and this space be red. We want to try to separate our colors. So I'm going to choose smaller spaces to color in my red. Now this is called cherry red, so it's not really the same color red as my fingernails, is it? I'm going through and I'm coloring in my spaces that I think would look good red. And I'm only choosing one space. I'm gonna ruin my paper if I don't move that. One space per triangle. So we don't want to put too much in there, okay? You can choose larger spaces. That's not a problem at all. You just can't choose to color the whole thing in red because we want it to look a little bit different. Now, some of you might remember that I have some paintings in my classroom that were done using these same colors. That's actually by a different artist named Piet Mondrian. And he was an inspiration and a friend to Alexander Calder. He encouraged him to paint a lot. And Alexander Calder tried it and he didn't like it. So he went back to sculpture. But he gave it a try because it was something different. So that's what he did. Now I want to keep my red down in this area. All right, I don't want to color any of the shapes up here red. I'm not going to do that. I'm instead going to color them all blue. You don't have to use blue, you can use yellow, but I'm going to put these all, I want them all to be the same color. So whichever color you want them to be, they just can't be red. Or if you want to color these red and use blue down here, that's fine. You can do that. Just you can't, well, you can, but for this project, we're going to try to keep our colors kind of separated. Now remember to color as much as you can in the same direction. As you guys notice, I got really close to the edge in this one down here, so I had to move my paper to where I wouldn't go off the edge of my notebook because it wasn't quite working. And I had to change the direction I was coloring as well. But if you color all of the same direction, it looks better in your papers. And if you notice, I'm still coloring the same direction in this shape as I did in the first shape. So that is what I want you to do. We're practicing a little bit of coloring as well as our drawings. Go slowly, do a good job. Please do not scribble your artwork. We are all at home with all sorts of extra time to get stuff done and to do it correctly. I want you to take the time to slow it down and do it right. Okay? I don't want you to rush. There's no reason to rush. We have lots and lots of time to get our artwork done. And if you need to take a break from your artwork because, you know, sometimes we can't do all of our work at once. If you need to take a break from your art, that's fine. Take a break. Go do something else for a while. Come back to it. finish it. Okay, so now we're gonna add yellow. Yellow's gonna go down here with the red. And I'm just gonna pick areas that I think are yellow. Oh, that's a nice yellow. What do you think would look nice yellow? And as you can see, and I kind of did this on purpose. Well, I didn't kind of, I did it on purpose. When you put the two colors together, it's no longer as interesting as if they're separated. White space is good to use at this point in time. I'm using lots of white space and it's fine. And I'm going to show you how to fix that to where you can still see a separation of colors. See, I moved my paper because I didn't take my paper out of the notebook this time. I'm just leaving it in my notebook. So I just pick it up and move it to where I can color it better, because if I don't, I might accidentally end up ripping it. Okay, so now the last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna do a little bit of accent shapes in black. Okay, so for this, how to solve this problem is you take your black pencil and you just make a new solid black shape. And now that has created the separation that we need. Okay. Now, if you feel like you want to do patterns instead of solid shapes, that's fine. I'm going to make some of these a little bit smaller because I don't want to have a ton of large shapes. Run into that same problem again. I don't want to have a lot of large shapes that are solid black. I don't know, something about it it doesn't seem appealing to me. And that's okay that if you want to add lines to it later, that's fine. Art is always changing, and sometimes you figure out that what you started with isn't going to work for you the way that you thought it was going to. That happens a lot. Ms. Ottenreith has experienced that a lot when working with art, that sometimes the way that you originally start something out, it turns into something completely different than you first imagined that it would be. Now, if you want to, and I'm not saying you have to, if you want to, you may even go back in and say, no, I like it like this. But you may be like, that needs some blue. So you can go in and you can add, first make sure that line is black. You can add small areas in which you have decided that they need to have some blue. Now, if you do it to one of your triangles, you should probably add it to all of your triangles, because if you notice, it doesn't quite work when you only do it to part of it. Like I said, art is always evolving and changing and working with it to make it, you know, how do I make this better? I'm gonna do this. This is gonna look neat. So that's the coolest thing about art, is that you can do all sorts of things and you can change how you do them many different times. And I'm going to call that done. So it's not a super hard project, but if you make it too tiny, guess what? You're not going to be able to draw it out like this. Try to get your triangles drawn up to about halfway up your paper, or to that middle hole in your binder. Remember your shapes. Now, if you look at my shapes, they fall under the no tiny shapes. My class, we know that we use our hand shaped like this. And if we make a circle that is smaller than our hand, the circle we make with our hand, then it's too small to use, especially on most of our projects. And I will always tell you when you can make teeny tiny little shapes. Like when we did these patterns, we're making a shape pattern. You can make much smaller shapes than on here. The larger the shapes you work with, the more dramatic your picture is going to turn out to be. You can color this in any way you want to. I used colored pencils because it's what I have. If you have crayons, use crayons. If you have markers, you may use markers. If you have watercolor or any other type of paint, go ahead, experiment with that, see how that looks. And don't forget to submit it to Google Classroom. Bye, guys.